Good morning. Welcome back to the Broadcast Retirement Network. I'm Jeff Snyder. This is BRN Weekly for Saturday, March 6th, 2021. And our top story today, yes, Gen Z is leading the way with their financial habits. And joining me now to discuss this and a lot more is Eric Sabatino. He's a student at Elon University. Eric, great to see you. Thanks for joining us on the program this morning.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you, and you're coming to us live from your dorm room. I'm sure you're knee deep in schoolwork, but I wanted to spend a couple minutes with you because you and I have traded several emails, several messages, and I know you're very passionate about saving, and that is nice to hear. It's near and dear to our heart. But I want to start off. What really led you to thinking about saving and investing for your future?
So I guess the first thing that really got me interested in saving was a lot of people kept making comments about how my generation might not have Social Security, or they would make jokes, and I would hear a lot. And I thought about to myself, what does that mean for me long term? If I didn't have Social Security, where would I be? And so then I thought, what could I do to protect myself from that risk of not having Social Security? And so that meant I needed to invest in things with compounding interest to be able to protect my future, essentially. And so that's what really got me into wanting to invest and wanting to make sure that I'm going to be able to retire with money in my pocket.
Yeah, I love that. And by the way, I think what people say about your generation, I don't think you can paint a broad brush. Because you look at my generation and my parents' generation, there are some good savers and some not so good savers. Eric, how did you educate yourself about investing? Because did you get it in high school? Are you getting some of that education in your first semester, now second semester at Elon?
I feel I've gotten most of my education on investing from YouTube, Google, just basically being able to use the internet to research all these topics. My elementary and middle school barely mentioned it. My high school didn't really touch on it at all. And then college, they've given us some teachers with websites and stuff to try to get us that information, but we've never had a class on it. So I feel like for me personally, it all is just independent research because there's no time really given to it in particular. Just for the average investor, the average person who's only trying to protect themselves from loss or risk.
Yeah, and when you talk to your other classmates, whether it's those that you graduated with from high school or those that you're in class with in college today, can you gauge their interest? I mean, do you talk to them about investing and saving? Is it kind of split? How are your peers thinking about the same issue?
I think everyone, all my friends, acquaintances, coworkers, everyone's interested in saving. The problem is either they don't know how to or they don't have the disposable income to start saving. So if my coworkers at my second job, they weren't able to pay. They were trying to. All their money went to supporting the household, and so they weren't able to actually put that into disposable income they could use to save. Or you'll just have people who, as soon as they get money, they spend it instantly, because they don't have the mindset that they're trying to protect their future.
Yeah, and I mean, it certainly makes sense. And that having that ability to save, having that disposable income really is important. And you mentioned you're working. Are you working part-time now at a job while attending school?
So once COVID hit, I just stopped. I took a leave of absence, and then once I moved down here to North Carolina, I've just been a student. But I've been able to save almost all my money from working because I was luckily in a position to where my parents can pay for my education. So yeah, right now I'm not currently employed, but because I was able to save all my money from the two jobs that I had over my high school career, I was able to use that money to invest right now.
I'm getting a big smile on my face. I don't know if you can see it, Eric. It just makes me smile, and I'm really, really happy for you. Now, when it comes to, let's just talk, if we might, just about the pandemic and what college education is like. You're actually the first college student we've had on the program. We've heard anecdotally from people who cover the higher education space, but how have classes been at Elon during your first semester? Had there been any in-person classes, or is it strictly video conferencing?
So most of the classes are in a hybrid situation. Like half the students will be able to go in, and the other half go in on Zoom. Um, or the teacher will want all students on Zoom one day, and then sometimes they'll try to get us in an outside classroom. So it's really just whatever the teacher can do within the COVID guidelines for the school. And there's so much like up in the air about even like the week to week, because if a teacher can get a outside space, then we'll be able to have class all together outside. But if the teacher isn't, then we'll have to separate on Zoom or just all go on Zoom.
And you graduated, I think, last year in 2020, right? That was your June 2020 or May 2020. And you had already experienced some virtual conferencing and virtual learning. How did that help you with the transition? And was it different going to high school and doing, you were in your second semester, so, second semester typically for seniors, if you're in college or already accepted, you're kind of coasting a little bit. But is there a difference between how your high school implemented video conferencing and learning versus Elon?
Yeah, I mean, it was hard for, high schools to adjust to that wild period from March until the end of May, to be able to even educate students. And I felt like a lot of my senior friends, we weren't able to it didn't really make any sense to us to go on class over Zoom and everything. And so I feel like it didn't help transitioning, because it kind of made us lose part of our schooling a little bit, just because we weren't able to just move into this new transition state of schooling. And so when we moved over to Elon, I just feel like it was just a new environment completely. So it's just hard, to tell the difference.
Yeah. And have you had interaction with your classmates? I mean, from what I've read and what I've heard from other contributors, there's some discouragement of, when I was a kid, we went to the bars. Back then you could go as 18-year-old and you couldn't drink. But are you able to interact and join social clubs and do the things with, that you would traditionally be able to do if we were not in a pandemic?
Somewhat, but not at the same extent. It's not the same, just because limited capacity everywhere. Even in gyms, you have to sign up to go to the gym. So clubs meeting either on Zoom, which isn't nearly as functional and community creating. But even there are times when you're definitely able to get a group of students. It's just there are precautions and everything that I feel dial back the experience as much as I would have wanted it to be.
Yeah, and that's consistent with some of the anecdotal things that I've heard from some of our contributors. Last question, Eric. I know you're majoring in political science, and it's early, right? I mean, you just got to college, but what are your future plans? Are your plans to go into politics, or your plans, I understand you're very good at math and statistics. Do you have a direction on where you'd like to go?
Yeah, I want to go into law first, probably. I'm looking for internships right now. But
there you go. Yeah, anyone watching?
Law, and then yeah, anyone watching, if they have any internship advice, you can email me at esabatino@elon.edu. But
there you go. Thanks.
We'll
put that in the graphics below. Go ahead, Eric. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's all good. Yeah, probably want to get my law degree first, and then maybe go into politics. So yeah, bright future ahead, hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're just starting, and it sounds like you have a bright future, both professionally and financially. Eric Sabatino, it is a pleasure to talk to you. Stay safe, keep on saving, and we look forward to having you back on the program again very soon.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Eric. Great to see you. Thanks for sharing your perspective. And when we come back, we'll take a look at some of our best segments for the week. You're going to want to stay tuned right here on BRN Weekly. Imagine a new television network that will make you richer, healthier, and in control of your financial future. This network is for the policewoman in Nashville, Tennessee, the baker in Dubuque, Iowa, the teacher in Lexington, Kentucky. We want to make the idea of savings and retirement culturally relevant. But what do you see as a defining issue of the midterms? Especially for the smaller businesses. I mean, they are the lifeblood of the American economy. Featuring exclusive interviews, current affairs, and docuseries. 33 years old, you retired early.
The philosophy is money only matters if it helps you live a life that you love.
But you got to start thinking about retirement as soon as you get in.
The Broadcast Retirement Network will drive very high engagement with premium partnerships. So this isn't retirement and savings for your parents or grandparents. This is for all Americans. And we're going to change the way you think about money. Welcome to the next frontier of retirement and savings. This is BRN, the Broadcast Retirement Network.
Are you stuck with a low credit score? A credit report and score that's causing you to be denied credit or pay higher interest rates than others for the same things? Then do what Terrence did and call Credit Repaired for your free credit evaluation to help restore your credit.
I started thinking about buying a new house, and my score wasn't where I needed it to be. I called and spoke with one of the representatives, and we just had a good conversation, and I liked what he was saying.
Just one call for his free credit evaluation was all it took to start back on the track to repairing his credit.
I'm seeing the deletions and I'm getting the report, so I know something's being done. It does make a difference to me.
All it takes is one call to get started.
Credit Repair has given me a second chance to have a better credit score.
Don't let a low credit score hold you back another day. Do what Terrence did and make the call for your free credit evaluation.
Call 800-819-4152. That's 800-819-4152. Again, 800-819-4152.
Welcome back. On Monday, I sit down with Department of Defense Office of Financial Readiness' Andy Cohen to discuss the financial readiness of our men and women in the military. Let's take a look.
So the genesis of the office really probably goes back 15, almost 20 years ago, when certain financial readiness education functions were required in the department, because financial readiness really has a nexus to overall mission readiness. When service members are burdened with, for example, excessive debt, it takes their mind off the mission. They can't focus on the mission. Commanders, first sergeants, leaders are distracted by helping soldiers work through financial problems. And eventually financial problems may lead to a loss of security clearance or other disciplinary action for those who can't pay their debts or get in extreme financial problems and can't work through them, even to involuntary separation. And so from a business or bottom line perspective, that means that the department has to spend more money on recruiting, training, and retaining service members, not to mention the non-monetized cost of losing leadership experience and those type of things. So it saves the department in the long run money, limited money, that could better be spent on readiness training by flying aircraft, steaming ships, out on the gunnery range and things like that. So that's the genesis behind it. The most recent push or update to it is a result really of the fiscal year 2016 National Defense Authorization Act that implemented the blended retirement system. And one of the recommendations from the commission that studied the transfer to the system was that the department would need to expand the scope of financial literacy training provided and the frequency. And that's what Congress did when they enacted the law, the current law in 2016. One of the requirements from Congress is that we do an annual survey on the financial literacy and preparedness of the force. And we submit that report to Congress every year. And the last survey indicated that 72% of the force felt comfortable in their financial condition over the last 12 months. Another interesting statistic was that I had it here right here, that about 78% have some level of emergency savings. And what's really interesting is when we ask the question, emergency savings, we don't start with a $400 amount. We go in terms of months, because really that's important. Do you have enough to cover so many months of expenses? And 66% indicated they had 1 month or more, and 33% indicated 3 months or more of savings. So I think that is a lot better than the overall U.S. population. So that speaks to that. But that's not to say that there aren't individuals who have challenges and who are in those lower percentages of not having financial emergency savings and not feeling comfortable. And so we continue to work with those members to get them to where they need to be. One example is that when we transitioned to the blended retirement system, we had immediately a challenge of training the force on blended retirement, what it is, what it consists of. And we had to train the force in a number of different perspectives or lanes. One, we had to train leadership as to what it was so that they could educate their troops. We had to educate and update the knowledge of educators and counselors so that they could engage. And then we had to educate the force, especially those that were in what was called the opt-in window, those that would be eligible to opt into the new system, because there was a period of that was offered. And so how do you educate, 1.5, 1.6 million service members? Required us to develop a standardized training across the enterprise, but deliverable in multiple mediums or channels. For example, service members serving in the Navy at sea are faced with limited bandwidth. So the courses may be presented as a scripted course on a CD-ROM, where other people had the ability to log in and take the course online. Others had the ability to take it in class in masses for Guard and Reserve, like during weekend drill. And that philosophy has really carried over into the entire scope of knowledge that we believe service members should have. One of the things we did in enacting the law was we did a study as to what financial skills service members and their families should have to successfully navigate not only the military, but life across the military life cycle. That included touch points such as coming on board, because when you onboard, you have to make immediate financial decisions as to who do you want your life insurance beneficiaries to be, which GI Bill do you want, all the way to estate planning in terms of how much to contribute to the retirement plan, and this goes to your point about, being prepared to go to war and suffer some of the ultimate consequences, is that one of the pieces of paperwork that you have to do estate planning wise is who do you want to be notified in case of emergency, or even to basically claim your remains should you not come home, and things like that. So we educate folks all the way from that point to the time that they transition out of the service, be it they retire or they just end their commitment. And at the end of the cycle, or end of the life cycle, you have things about retired pay, or even things about the thrift savings plan and its portability and their options to that, and being prepared to understand what expenses they would have in civilian life that they don't necessarily have in the military, where healthcare is provided. So that's kind of a large overview of that.
And on Wednesday, I sat down with Nutrition Health Works' Travis Chilcott to discuss healthy aging and proper nutrition. Let's take a look.
Here's what I tell people a lot of times. You always have to eat, right? So that's something that's a requirement for life. So it's something that nourishes your body. If you don't do it properly, or if you don't nourish your body enough, you're going to pay the price down the road. And that's the one thing about nutrition is, sometimes you can feel the effects immediately, but a lot of times it's not till much later down the road before you actually, feel the consequences, so to speak, or of just a poor health and diet. Making it fun and exciting is a big part of what needs to be done, and much like talking about there again, circling back to eating's a way of life, you're going to be doing it forever, right? So having having some spicing it up a little bit, trying new things, always keeping it exciting is an easy way to stay motivated about eating healthier, making better choices. And then on the flip side of it is making sure you're not, knocking yourself too hard for if you do make what you may consider a poorer choice or what have you, or yes, you do cave into some fast food from time to time or whatever. That's no big deal. But it also adds that little bit of spice. If you want a little bit, you want pizza or you want a burger, you want something like that. You've got to do those things. But overall, you want to make healthier choices for the majority of your choices. We just added a pediatrics section of ours. We brought on a pediatric dietitian that specializes in that. But so now we see all age ranges. Before it was mainly considered adults, but now, we see youngsters all the way down with food allergies. 22 months old, I think, is the youngest that we've seen to date, all the way up, into seniors. So we do work with all age ranges. Most dietitians and nutrition professionals should be, pretty well versed in at least adults, and some are specialized in pediatrics. So you can find a professional that can deal with each level or variation of age groups. But at our particular company, we're from start to finish. You're exactly right. The earlier, the better, especially if you, as a parent, if you're feeling like you truly haven't been able to help that child in that area. One big indicator, if the parent struggles with helping, obviously the kid's going to struggle too because of the level of education. And then of course, a couple other things play into that. But it's funny you mentioned the diabetes side of things. I mean, the reason why we've had to add on this pediatric side is because of the number of pediatric clients that we get. And, have providers that specialize in obesity for pediatric and diabetes for pediatric. We've got over 200,000 children have diabetes in this country. So it's extremely important, and it's something that is ever growing, and it's funny. We talk a lot about nutrition, fueling the body, and people think of it from here down. But, your brain runs off of this same fuel. And actually, your brain burns some of the most calories of the organs through the day. And we have to fuel that, and fueling it properly, healthy fats, carbohydrates, all those things are going to certainly help your cognitive function. The gray matter, so to speak, is just basically a bundle of fat. And so we have to make sure that we're supplying that brain with good, healthy fat sources, unsaturated fats, things like that. And then, of course, energy levels too, with carbohydrates are going to be the main source there. So it'll give you both cognitive energy and also prevent the cognitive decline on the long run if you fuel yourself properly and give your body the right nutrients. And there's actually a good keyword for this now. It's called diet culture. It's kind of a really nice little phrase that we have, a diet culture. That's what we live in now, is a diet culture. And what our job and what we're doing and many other nutrition professionals are doing is trying to destroy that, and with diet culture comes restriction. And that's the reason why we're trying to eliminate this, try this, try that. And we get people who call in and they say, I don't know if you can help me or not, because I've tried everything and yada, yada. And they go through all the gamuts of the different types of restrictive dieting that they do. And instead, we try to flip their brain, their mindset, in the sense of we encourage you to eat variation and to eat in moderation, eat the things you enjoy, because eventually you will. And the diet culture is not sustainable. And that's the biggest thing, right? You have these 30-day diets, 90-day diets. And I always like to ask people and say, well, what are you going to do after the 30 days? Oh, well, I'm going to eat healthier. Well, how are you going to do that. So instead of restricting yourself for a certain period of time, we're trying to encourage people to say, listen, we understand you're going to want to crave sweets or high fat, food groups and things like that from time to time. We get it. We do the same thing. The pizza example is perfect. So, but how do you take that and do that in moderation? And then how do you move on from that as far as switching up, your other integrating into other food groups and things like that to make it overall a choice that your brain and your body's going to enjoy because you don't feel restricted, but at the same time know that, hey, I'm staying in the right path and I'm still I'm eating healthier and I can feel better about being able to include the foods that I really, really enjoy. And somebody's not telling me I can't have that anymore when they're, 30 or 40 years old and you're thinking to yourself, oh gosh, you mean I can't have this particular food for the next 40 years of my life? That's absurd.
And that wraps up this episode of BRN Weekly. Have a topic of interest, someone you think we should talk to, then drop us a line. And don't forget, for all the information in retirement markets, technology, personal finance, so much more, all in one place, check out today's edition of our newsletter, The Morning Pulse. Don't forget, we're back again tomorrow with BRN Sunday. I'll be joined by members of the media, academia, and financial services as we analyze all the news this week. So until then, I'm Jeff Snyder. Stay safe, keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes.
Are you being audited and do you owe the IRS $10,000 or more in back taxes? Is the IRS threatening to take more of your money? Don't fight the IRS alone. The Tax Doctor is here to help you negotiate your tax bill and reduce your stress. The IRS can freeze your assets and seize your bank accounts, but you can stop these IRS actions. The Tax Doctor will work with you using our years of experience to represent your case to help you get the best resolution under the IRS guidelines. Help is here to deal with the IRS to reduce your stress. We've handled thousands of cases, so we know what we're doing. If you owe $10,000 or more in back taxes, do not call the IRS alone. Call a Tax Doctor now for a tax emergency analysis.
Call 800-224-6439.